Hello, a warm welcome to KNM's third Salon in the frame of the project Tunings of the World 2.0, which has accompanied the ensemble for 3 years now. We broadcast live from the Teilelager at Berlin-Lichtenberg, KNM's working space and performing space in Berlin since 2020. I am Thomas, co-founder of the ensemble and host of this evening. A welcome to our guests from India. Good night, we have to say, and our guests from Mexico, good morning. We are looking forward to two guests tonight from two very different regions from the world. Ananta Krishnan, a great tabla and mridangam player from Chennai in India, will be with us in a few minutes. And later we look forward to composer Ivan Naranjo from Mexico City. But let's dive right into the first music. Alvin Lissier, who passed away at the end of last year, was a central figure for many composers and artists. Ensemble KNM also worked closely with Alvin the last time in 2017 on the occasion of Marchmusik here in Berlin. Among other things, we performed this work's memory space, which we see as a foil for our work in global space. It is a verbal composition, as you can see here. For the 2017 event, Alvin created a special version for us in which he provided a timeline to organize the sonic events, a unique and unpublished document that can be seen here in the background. The score says the following: go to an outside environment and record by any means the sound situation of those environments. Returning to an inside performance space at any time later, recreate solely by means of your voices and instruments, and with the aid of your memory devices, those outside sound situations. In order to come as close as possible to the memorized sounds, the musicians used all the instrumental possibilities of the contemporary repertoire. In this way, the musicians came very, very close to the original sounds, and quite proudly, we presented our sound photographic work to Alvin Lissier. Alvin Lissier's answer was surprising. No extended techniques, please. The task was then really new. How do you recreate urban sounds with traffic noise, a bubble of voices, commercial noises, but also rain, bird calls, or water fountains with exclusively classical instrumental playing? Alvin Lissier's advice on interpretation is remarkable. First and foremost, it is a statement against the mainstream of contemporary art, and thus also for a permanent critical questioning of one's own artistic activity. Secondly, Lissier's reference to interpretation confuses the vertical axis of old and new. Yes, of course, you can make contemporary music with historical instruments and techniques, just as you can with traditional instruments from other cultures. Alvin Lissier's suggestion of no extended techniques in relation to the instrumental recreation of the sound of our environment opens up yet another perspective on the question of identity. She also means that music as art should not be confused with a sonic realism, and that it goes beyond this. The memory inserted between perceived and recreated sound, paired with highly artificial musical skill and talent, is the start of a process of abstraction that is both magical and poetic. Let's now listen to the interpretation of the musicians of the KNM Berlin following Alvin Lissier's suggestion, no extended techniques, please. I have the honor to announce Rebecca Lenton on the flute, Theo Narbicht, bass and contrabass, clarinet, Matthew Conley, trumpet, Pascal Vigneault, percussion, and the strings, Theodor Flindell, violin, Kirsten Maria Pienka, viola, and on the violoncello, Cosima Gerhardt. This was Memory Space by Alvin Lucier, performed by the Ensemble KNM Berlin. I think it's a good idea at this point we should to talk about the sources of memory space. What do the original sounds actually sound like that the musicians memorized, and where do they come from? Well, they come from two places, from Berlin and Chennai in southeast India. Together with our colleagues from India, Ananta Krishnan, we collected them a few years ago. I think it's a good idea now to listen to them. Sound artists and luthier Wouter Jaspers, whom I warmly welcome, has put them together for us in a sound collage, and we are going to listen to it now. Many thanks to Wouter Jaspers for this beautiful collage of sounds from Chennai and Berlin we used as a source for instrumental performance of Memory Space some minutes ago. Let's check if our guest from Chennai, Ananta Krishnan, if he's already here. I tried to let him enter, and of course I'm curious to know whether he could hear which sounds were from India and which have been from Berlin. Ananta, hi, nice to meet you.
Good evening.
Good evening. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Thousands of kilometers from Berlin, far away. And
my pleasure as well to be here. Thank you.
Of course, my first question goes in this direction. You accept that. What is the situation like for artists in India under Corona conditions? I'm very curious to hear about that.
Well, kind of the scenario is something that resembles, I think, most professions that require public assembly and congregation. So in that context, arts per se has taken kind of a backseat here in India. And over the last 2 years, probably far and few many musicians got to work in live environments. But kind of like the theory of anti-fragility, when you push to the corner, I think you find other ways to express your creativity, and the online and OTT and all of these virtual concerts kind of became something in vogue. And I think some musicians have found an alternate parallel. I don't think it'll obviously ever replace the live, but as a parallel economy or a parallel way of earning and staying creative, this has come to be a new field of profession within the creative. So I think in that context, some musicians have found ways to stay afloat. Other musicians probably have had a little bit of a tougher time. It's a mixed bag of things. But I wouldn't say it's been easy, but at the same time, I think there is evidence to suggest that new ways of doing things have found artists to express themselves in different, possibilities and groups and technology even. And so I think that's also a good thing. So it's a good and bad scenario.
it's nice to hear that you have this positive idea, or that you can see the positive impact of this pandemic as well. And my next question goes to the sounds we have heard now. Could you describe a little bit the sounds of the sound world of Chennai? My experience is that it was very different from those of Berlin, not only the car horns, but maybe you can give us some, an idea about the sound environment of Chennai.
The most important thing that comes to my mind in terms of the sound that I hear in Chennai versus Berlin is something kind of like axes, you know. You have maybe 3 or 4 axes of timbre that Berlin offers, and in Chennai, for whatever reason, maybe it's still 3 or 4. However, it seems like a lot more because maybe the sound is magnified because of just so much more social entropy. Therefore, kind of some of these sounds that I remember recording, some of them I recorded, but some of them in creating. The intensity of the sound is a lot more in the Chennai scenes because there's just so many more layers that have been kind of addressed. And so that's one thing that is interesting about looking at Chennai as a sound sphere or a place of sound, is there's so many more axes of timbre that you have the option of kind of locking into when you decide to recreate these things. Whereas in Berlin, it's an exercise of subtlety, I think, in some situations. You know, obviously there are some samples which are so beautiful because of the quiet that the city also offers in comparison to Chennai. And therefore there is a serenity in being able to recreate some of those sounds. And so I think between those two axes of, you know, more textural layers versus something in Berlin where it's a little bit more subtle. In that capacity, I'd say Chennai has a lot more kind of human voices that maybe come out, people advertising whatever they're selling in the streets, and you know, the kind of interactions of people speaking is a little bit more magnified. I remember one of my favorite clips was a guy selling coconut water, and you just go, Eleni, Eleni, and I thought, you know, to hear that kind of sound anywhere else would be, you know, quite shocking, perhaps even. But here it's part of the sound fabric, which is kind of funny and nice. So that's my observation.
And would you say that this intensive and multi-layered environment inspires you in your work as a musician, or is making music more an abstract matter for you?
It's a bit of both. Kind of like if you can tune your mind to being inspired by those layers, that's great. Sometimes if you want to kind of just pull away from it, one should have the option as an artist. But I think it's a bit of both. I don't take them as isolated experiences. I think that identity that you so beautifully spoke about earlier is something that definitely has to have a resonance in public sound, if I can call it that, because it belongs to everybody. Sound belongs to everybody. But at the same time, we as musicians and artists choose to capture some of the sounds distinctly unto us and as a representation of who we are. So that dialogue that we have between public sound and personal sound is something that I choose very carefully to be a part of. And I want both.
Last time we worked together on memory space, right? On these very concrete sounds and sounds of the environment. And memory space is actually a text composition, yes? And this time you suggested for our new collaborative project in Indian text to be worked out as music. Let's have a listen to this text you have chosen.
കല്യാണ സൗഗന്ധികം കുഞ്ചൻ നമ്പ്യാർ. സുരന്മാർ ദാനവന്മാരും നരന്മാർ പന്നകന്മാരും ചരന്മാർ ചാരണന്മാരും പരന്മാർ പാർത്ഥിവന്മാരും കടുക്കും കോപമോടെന്നെ തടുക്കും നേരമേ പാഞ്ഞങ്ങടുക്കും ഞാൻ ഗതകൈയിൽ എടുക്കും സങ്കരെ നല്ല മിടുക്കും വീര്യശൗര്യങ്ങൾ നടിക്കും കശ്മലന്മാർക്കിട്ടിടിക്കും കൈകളും കാലുമൊടിക്കും ദേഹം എപ്പേരും പൊടിക്കും ഭൂമിയിലുള്ള പൊടിക്കും പാത്രമാക്കും ഞാൻ ഇടിക്കും മുഷ്ടികൾ കൊണ്ട് പിടിക്കും മർദ്ദനം ചെയ്യും അടിക്കും താടനം ചെയ്യും മുടിക്കും വൈരിവൃന്ദത്തെ കടിക്കും പാമ്പിനെപ്പോലെ കടക്കും മന്ദിരം തന്നിൽ കിടക്കും വിത്തവും വാരിക്കൊടുക്കും വിക്രമെല്ലാം അടക്കും സ്ഥാനമാനങ്ങൾ മടക്കമെന്നിയെ വിശ്വമടക്കും ഭീമസേനൻ ഞാൻ നടക്കുമിങ്ങനെ ചെറ്റുമടക്കം മാരുതിക്കില്ല മടവാർമാലികേ ബാലേ വടക്കുദിക്കിനെ നോക്കി നടക്കും പർവ്വതമാശു കടക്കും നമ്മുടെ മാർഗം മുടക്കും വൈരികളെല്ലാം കടക്കും കാലഗേഹത്തിൽ കിടക്കും കുംഭിപാകത്തിൽ പൊടുക്കെന്നാശു നിൻകാര്യം ലഭിച്ചു പോരുവൻ ഭീമൻ.
Ananda, yes. Would you please say something about this text? I'm curious about the background, about the author and the artist Irene Matthew, who has read this text, and as well how this text will be used or presented in India.
So this is from, I think, the 1700s, written by the famous poet from Malayalam language, Kunjan Nambiar. And it documents a mythological character called Bhima, who was one of the very kind of, you want to call him the equivalent of something like the Incredible Hulk or something like that, someone known for just very vibrant strength and as a warrior also. And the interesting thing about this text, well, to go back one step, the difference between text and using sound also, I think, as one more layer of a possibility to be inspired is something that I thought would be very nice, because the sound of the language is also a possibility for interpretation. Meaning, of course, is there, and the literal translations of what the poem means is also another layer. So I thought, as a musician, sometimes when we hear sound, we're affected by it, both positively, negatively, sometimes even confused. And with these texts, there's such an inherent, rhythm and a kind of prosody, we call, where it's set to a certain type of meter, but at the same time, there is something that's very rhythmical about it, even if you take it in isolation. So it's set to a rhythm, so on some level, if somebody wants to just look at it or hear it as something that's a piece of music, that affordability is there. Now, if you go a little bit deeper, what this says about this mythological character is a certain type of aggression and violence. A lot of the translation is about him saying, this is who I am. I punch with my fist. I destroy all my enemies. I bite like a snake. I take your money, give it to the people. I am victorious at all costs. And that kind of very brazen translation, I thought would also be something interesting to interpret across all different instruments. How do you, channelize aggression, confidence, and all of these things in your instrument? And how is it in the context of what it is that you would do with an ensemble? So that's kind of the background of why I think some of these poems are beautiful for these kind of interpretations. And Irene Matthew, the person who's recited this quite beautifully, she's an interdisciplinary artist who will be part of the collaboration. And so her native language is Malayalam. So in that capacity, I think the authenticity of what you have as a sound is also something that's very good to kind of engage and interpret.
Many thanks, Ananda. So we had 2 and 3 rehearsal days with this text, and I'm very proud that the musicians found a way to give a short idea of what that could be in our further projects. You are, of course, invited to stay with us, even it's already very late in Chennai. So please stay with us, but if not,
Sure, sure.
bye-bye, and hopefully till soon.
Yes. Good luck, and thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. Karin? This was a transcription by Rebecca Lenton, Theo Navicht, and Pascal Vigneault of this old South Indian text we have heard some minutes ago. As you have noticed, we at Tunings of the World send texts and verbal compositions to each other and are curious about the relations by our friends in other countries. Ana Maria Rodriguez, a composer from Argentina working in Berlin, sent the following very short text to our friends to Chennai. It's titled Ritual. Create a sensitive space of resonance. Use some gongs of different sizes and resonant quality installed in different directions from the listener. Play a single sound that repeats at irregular times, at voices imitating animal sounds. Build rhythmic phrases in crescendo and diminuendo like waves. Let's listen to Gold for percussion solo and two gongs by Ana Maria Rodriguez, performed by Pascal Vigneault percussion and Ana Maria Rodriguez live electronics. was Gold by Ana Maria Rodriguez and Pascal Vinino performed at Tyler Lager here in Berlin East. But now I would like to introduce our second guest of the evening, Mexican composer Ivan Naranjo. Ivan holds a master's degree in experimental music from Wesleyan University. This is a university where Alvin Lucier teach for a long time, and a PhD from the Stanford University. His music results from his interest in the expressive possibilities of musical situations involving flexible structures. And this is important as well for the piece we are going to perform in a few minutes. Much of this work is written for chamber ensemble, but extends to installation, algorithmic composition, live electronics, and improvisation. So, a warm welcome to Ivan. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Thomas. Hi, how are you?
How are you doing?
Thanks for this. And I'm doing well. Very excited to listening to this piece and to KNM. So, this is the first time the piece will be presented in its total form, like for 7 instruments. So that's really good.
I didn't know that. So there have been other performances for smaller instrumentations, right? Or
there was only one performance before, which happened also in Germany by the Mexican ensemble Liminar, and that was for 3 instruments only.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
So we have common friends. It's like because I've just once I've invited Liminar for the CDM festival here in Berlin. So they're real great musicians. So you can imagine my first question, because you studied at the Wesleyan University and you might met Alvin Lucier once. And so my question is, how important is this work for your own understanding of music? And are there some influences you would like to mention?
Well, yeah, the reason I went to Wesleyan was Alvin Lucier. I knew only 2 pieces then by him, Music for Solo Performance, and I Am Sitting in a Room. And I thought of both pieces like if they were magic the first time I listened to them. Later on, I had the opportunity to be a recording assistant for Music for Solo Performer. So that was a great experience also. And yeah, he was a very big influence. He still is. And I think the way you can hear it, or the way I think of this influence is more as learning how to listen to some acoustical phenomena that I guess in other pieces or in other concert situations are just a byproduct and not an essential part of the music. In my own work, I guess, is mostly the concept and the tradition of experimental music, which is very important to me, and the way I compose music, mainly not knowing precisely always what the final outcome will be. I guess a more evident influence can be heard in my work with percussionist Chris Cockburn. We have a duo, and we do a lot of work that results from hearing and making interact resonant frequencies of objects and instruments and architectural spaces. So I guess there is. Yeah.
And your piece, Improbable Architectures, we are going to perform in a few minutes. It's like opposite, let's say. It's it's not about, firstly, not about sound, but about structures, or how you would describe it. I will put a PDF of the score right now into the stream, and we will have a look at it. So it's a very clear, very beautiful score. But I think you should explain a bit what we see here.
Okay, yeah, I guess the most important part is the structure and articulation of this structure. No? I remember one of the things that Alvin used to say is that if you have a title, then you have the piece already composed or almost already composed. That doesn't always work with me. I most of the times I found the title after the composition has been finished or almost finished. In this case, it came very early as I started composing. My first goal was to compose a piece that retained some of my musical idiom that I've been developing for the last 10 years maybe, but allowing it to be for an undefined instrumentation. So this piece allows possibilities for it can be performed with 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 instruments, and the structure and its length will change depending on the situation. So yeah, the title became more or less evident to me when I was working the temporal structure of the piece. So it like this different tempi. I saw these different tempi like if they were the foundations of a building and the different levels of the building, no? And it's like an architecture that is on the verge of collapsing, like always a little bit shaky, but somehow remains, in its form. About the notation, I think is very similar to the notation I've been developing for more precisely notated works, where I work actual pitches and actual tempi and so on. In this case, I just did take some of the information out and made it more or less free. It is still very precise, but some elements can be chosen by the musicians, and yeah, also the whole structure can be very different from performance to performance.
And for sure, it activates the communication between the musicians. Yes, because it's you have to think about the whole piece, how the structure will be, and you will be really in the composition process involved as a musician. And it's really hard to find a piece where the title and the appearance of the score match together, yes, so are mirrored. So I thought it's very well done. So by reading the title, I really love to see the score as well. Because we have, you have told a bit about your influences you got from Alvin Lissier and his approach to listening and to make music. And how do you see yourself as an artist between real and imagined sound world? Is there any, does it play any role for you, or it's like a question from a stupid host that you can't answer?
Well, I think it can be answered in a lot of different ways. I think it's a relevant question regarding this piece in particular, because the sounds are not there. The sounds are being produced on real time, really. No? It's only the structure that holds it together. But I can also think that the act of listening involves a lot of imagining all the time. We switch from modes of listening, from one mode of listening to another one, and we are filtering, or we are adding information, or we are shaping what we hear, sometimes as music, or sometimes as information to be grasped. So yeah, I think it's a very open question, and I think it's very relevant to Lucier's piece, no, to Memory Space, where you of course, try to grasp some aspects of the sound you're hearing, but you're also again filtering and distorting with your memory and reimagining and reifying some aspects of what you heard, but not you cannot incorporate absolutely everything.
Okay. Yes. So I think many thanks to be with us tonight, or for you it's still the morning. And we are going now to perform Improbable Architectures by Ivan Naranjo. And again, Rebecca Lanton on the flute, Theo Nabicht on the bass clarinet, Matthew Conley, trumpet, Pascal Vinino, percussion, Theodor Flindell, violin, Kirsten Maria Pienka, viola, and Cosima Gerd on the violoncello. I have to thank the whole team, Karin Weißenbrunner and Wouter Jaspers, to be with us tonight. And yeah, hopefully we will see soon again in India or hopefully in Mexico too. I wish you a good day, a good night, and a good evening, and hopefully till soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.